It's 3 a.m. in 2012, and an ex-boyfriend and girlfriend are meeting up to say a final goodbye. As they hug, the ex-girlfriend hears a click. The next thing she knows, she's being stabbed in the face. In a park nearby, two friends, Serena and Israel, are hanging out. They suddenly hear a blood-curdling scream. It's the very early hours of the morning, so they realise that this is incredibly odd. When they hear it again, they start running towards this scream. They believe whoever it is being attacked. When they arrive, they see a man on top of a woman stabbing her repeatedly. Serena and Israel both start screaming for him to stop. You're going to kill her. What are you doing? Israel runs over and knocks the man off. He stumbles to the ground, runs to his car, and you think he's going to flee, but instead what he does is he opens the car door, grabs a larger knife, and heads back. At this point, Israel and Serena feel quite threatened. Serena is on the phone to 911 calling emergency services, but they feel like their life is now threatened. They begin backing away. This man comes back over to this victim, this woman who's laying on the floor, and begins stabbing her again. So despite having two witnesses, one who is clearly desperately on the phone to 911, this man continues to attack this woman. He then gives what Serena believes is a fatal blow. She starts screaming down the phone, "He's killed her, he's killed her." The man then walks away, gets back in his car and leaves. This is the story of Melissa Dohme. Melissa Dohme was born in 1991. She was the youngest sibling in her family. She was a straight-A student, a very sweet, kind girl who did very well at school. When she was in high school as a junior, she met a boy called Robert Burton, who was a senior. Robert was kind, caring, a gentle giant. Melissa describes him as charming. Robert was also very unique looking. He had heterochromia, so one colour eye was brown and the other was blue. He had different coloured eyes. In 2009, they officially started dating. Robert graduated high school and Melissa kind of felt sorry for him. Robert had a rough upbringing. He was passed around between his mother and his grandmother, and then his mother remarried and he didn't really feel like he fit in with that family. So he actually ended up spending a lot of time living at Melissa's family's house. Robert was sort of Melissa's first real boyfriend and he was her best friend. They were besotted with each other. They really cared about each other, but then things started to change. Melissa did very well at school. She was very academic and she began winning quite a few awards. Robert, rather than be proud of her and his girlfriend's achievements, kind of began to belittle her, make snide comments, even went so far as to call her a bitch. Melissa did so well that she actually got accepted into her dream college. However, Robert convinced her to stay where she was and just go to the local community college so that she could be closer to him. Whilst attending community college, she actually got a job as a receptionist at a local hospital, and this was really good for her because she really dreamed of becoming a nurse. Even though Robert was a year older, he actually didn't have a job. And as far as I can see, he didn't go on to attend higher education. Robert began turning up at the hospital when Melissa was working. He began demanding that he could hang out with her while she was working. Melissa would be adamant and say, "No, I'm working, you need to leave," and they would get into many fights. He began to become very controlling about who she spent her time with. He wanted all her recreational time to be spent with him. He didn't want her seeing friends or family. He was slowly trying to isolate her from everybody else. He would also constantly insult her, patronise her, and if there were any problems in their relationship, he would blame Melissa. Melissa did contemplate leaving him and wanted to break up with him, but every time she did, he would threaten to take his own life. So she's beginning to feel more and more trapped and suffocated in this relationship, but it only gets worse. In 2011, Melissa's sister invites her to a beach party. Melissa and Robert attend. They're all having a good time. There's lots of people at this beach drinking, and someone brings up a story about Melissa's ex-boyfriend. Now, Melissa knows Robert is not going to like this. He doesn't say anything at the time, but when they start walking back up the hill to the car, Robert begins purposefully stepping on the backs of her heels. She knows that he's doing this just because he's annoyed at that story and asks him to stop. He doesn't, so she begins slowly jogging away. He begins chasing her, and then when they get to the top, she was like, "Look, just stop chasing me, leave me alone." He actually pushes her and she ends up falling back down the hill and scraping her leg. The friends, hearing the commotion, run to see what's sort of going on, if anyone needs any help. Robert gets there first and says, "Oh, don't worry, Melissa fell down the hill." But when they arrive and see Melissa, she is adamant and she says, "No, he pushed me." So they begin having a blazing row in front of everyone. In the end, Melissa's sister says, "Look, I will take Melissa home." She can clearly see that something is wrong and that Robert is not as kind as he is making out to their family. So when Melissa gets back and the family are informed of what happened, they're not happy. They don't like Robert now. They used to really like him. Obviously, he used to live around their house a lot. He would stay there. He seemed very kind, very sweet. But now they are not happy. They do not want Melissa to be with this boy. However, Melissa feels trapped. She doesn't feel like she can leave Robert because not only has Robert threatened suicide, he's also threatened other things. Melissa actually ends up lying to her family about how the relationship is going. She would keep things from them, bruises, any marks. So this only served to isolate her more and more from people that she could genuinely trust, and the abuse slowly got worse. At one point he tried to strangle her. They were just chilling out in her bedroom and he put his hands over her neck and began to strangle her. She breaks free and is like gasping for air and sobbing. He grabs a knife and threatens her and says, "If you don't stop crying, I'm going to kill you. And not only am I going to kill you, but I'm also going to kill your mum." He would also say things like, "If you leave, I'm going to take my own life." And he would say this whilst holding alcohol and medication and threatening to overdose himself. So she feels completely trapped. The abuse is getting worse and he's threatening to take his own life if she leaves or murder her and members of her own family, particularly her mum. In October of 2011, so they have been together for just over 2 years now, Melissa and Robert are at a party and Robert demands that she go and get him cigarettes. Melissa's like, "No, this isn't the time and place, I'm at a party." In the end, they end up arguing and Robert says, "Fine, you come with me, we'll go and get these cigarettes." As they're leaving, Melissa whispers to a friend, "Please follow us," signalling to this friend that she doesn't feel safe in this relationship. "Please, can you just come along with us or follow us in the car behind?" So that's exactly what happened. And when they arrive at the petrol station, Robert's like, "Why is your friend here? Why have they followed us in another car?" Melissa plays dumb, like plays ignorant. She's like, "I don't know, maybe they wanted something as well." But this clearly riles up Robert because after the party, when they get home in front of Melissa's house, they start having a huge argument. Robert starts screaming at her. He also takes her bag and starts throwing all her personal belongings, her phone, her purse, all over the front garden. It's really late at night, so Melissa is begging him to stop, saying, "Please stop, you're going to wake people up, you're going to wake my family up, you're going to wake neighbours up, please stop." Robert gets so angry at her, he punches her in the face. Melissa falls to the ground and Robert gets on top of her and begins punching her again. He's screaming at her to stop screaming. He wants her to be quiet. She's obviously fighting him off as best as she can. She ends up kicking him in the groin. He rolls off. She gets up and starts running. She immediately runs and tries to find her phone, which she does. She grabs it, begins running, and dials 911. So she's dialed 911, it's ringing through. She turns around and realises that Robert has gotten up and is now chasing after her. So she begins running away from Robert. Whilst on the phone to the 911 operator, she ends up actually getting to the intersection and turns around and realises Robert is not behind her. She then panics because Robert in the past has said that he would murder her family. So she's like, "Oh gosh, where is he? Has he gone and gotten my keys, which are now on the front lawn, and gone in and started to attack my family?" So she begins running back. So she starts running back, and this whole time she's still on the phone with the 911 operator. As she's running back, Robert jumps out in front of her, begins to grab her. You can hear on this phone call Melissa say, "Please, Al, stop, please stop." And you can hear Robert say, "I'm never going to stop." So he's now got her, he's beginning to sort of grab her again. Just at that moment, 2 policemen arrive on the scene. Robert realises, "Let's go," and Melissa begins running towards the policeman. So she runs over to the police, and as she's doing that, Robert, who is completely selfish, completely narcissistic, says, "How could you do this to me? How could you call the police?" Despite the fact that he's been punching her continuously, attacking her, causing so much harm, threatening her, when she then calls the police, it's all back on him. Like, how could you do that to me? They arrest Robert. They take Melissa back to her family home. They wake up her mum and they explain the situation. They say, "Your daughter is in an abusive relationship." The mum is sort of blindsided slightly because Melissa had covered up so much. The only thing they really heard of really was him pushing her down that hill. And after that, Melissa covered any other thing up, said their relationship was fine. So the mum is shocked and upset. Melissa actually felt quite ashamed. Like, she wanted her mum to be proud of her, and she felt really ashamed and embarrassed admitting that she was in such a controlling relationship, which she shouldn't have felt that way at all. But I think that's how domestic violence victims often feel. Melissa said she hated telling her mum what had happened. And this shows how an abusive relationship can really isolate you from family and really affect your self-confidence. So Robert is charged with domestic battery. He spends 10 hours in jail. In the morning, he rings Melissa to come and pick him up. She's like, "No, absolutely not." The police the night before had warned Melissa and her mum, saying, "If you let him back in your life, you will definitely see us again. Like, this guy is not good for you at all. He is going to seriously hurt you one day." So for quite some time, Melissa stays away from Robert, and she says that during this time, her life went back to what it was before. She had more confidence. She was hanging around with friends. She was actually planning with a friend to go backpacking around Europe. She was doing all the things that Robert didn't let her do. She felt free again, and she felt like herself. 3 months go by, and periodically during that time, Robert had called her and she just ignored it. Then one night he called her over and over and over again. It was late in the night, and she eventually picked up. He said, "Look, I know it's over. All I want is to say goodbye. I just want to say goodbye. I just want a hug. And if we do that, I will never contact you again." Now, this was the early hours of January the 24th, 2012. So Melissa grabs her stuff, puts it in a bag, and along with actually some pepper spray, she heads outside her house, and Robert is there. One of the first things she notices about him, which she thinks is slightly odd, is the fact that he's very smartly dressed. So she walks over to him. They're in sort of the middle of the street. It's 3 a.m. in the morning, so there's no cars or anything. Melissa admits that something felt off. Something felt not right. Like, her gut instinct was telling her something's wrong. Anyway, Robert walks over to her. They hug. She hears a click, and the next thing she knows, she's being stabbed. And this is where we loop back to the beginning of the story, where we have Serena and Israel who witness the attack. The click, I assume, is the flick of the knife coming out of its holder. Robert ends up stabbing her 32 times. And this bit is a little bit gory, so if you want to skip forward, I would. Melissa said she heard her skull crack. Her mouth was full of blood. And when she was looking at Robert as he was towering over her, she said he just had a look of pure evil. After Robert left, Melissa said she just began to pray. She said, "I remember praying, I don't want my mum to walk out here." Even in those moments, she's thinking of her mum. And then her prayers began to change because she felt like she wasn't going to make it. She started to pray to God, saying, "Please forgive me for my sins and take me to heaven." She said she could hear Serena on the phone call to 911, so she knew help was coming. When police and paramedics arrived, they initially think that Melissa has passed away because of that 911 call and Serena and the operator hearing that fatal blow. But when they go over to Melissa, they suddenly realise that she is actually breathing. She has a very, very faint pulse. So they try to keep her conscious. They ask her questions like, "What's your name? Who's your attacker's name?" She was desperately trying to say the name Robert and to kind of spell it out, but her mouth was just so full of blood. She also suffered partial facial paralysis, which meant she couldn't really talk. Where police, however, had been called out previously for a domestic violence incident, they already knew Rob. He was obviously charged with domestic battery before. They had a picture of him, and they showed that picture to Serena and Israel, who identified that as the man who was attacking Melissa. The paramedics said this was one of the worst scenes they've come across. They did wake up Melissa's mum, but they didn't want her going anywhere near Melissa because it was just so horrific. She had been attacked a lot around her face, so there was a lot of sort of facial disfigurement. A firefighter who attended the scene, Cameron Hill, was like, this is so bad, this is life and death, we need to call a helicopter. So the helicopter arrived and it took them just 6 minutes to get from there to the hospital. On the way, Melissa was unresponsive. She had been stabbed 32 times and one of those stab wounds had nicked the jugular vein in her neck. She has suffered many, many injuries. She had her skull fractured, she had lost teeth. She had also lost an incredible amount of blood. She flatlined 4 times. She ended up also having a stroke. Despite all this though, she survived, and Robert was actually arrested the next day. He took a sort of overdose, or tried to take an overdose of pills, and ended up crashing his car into a local store. When taken to the hospital after his vehicle crashed, he confessed to what he had done to Melissa and was shocked when they told him that she had survived. Melissa had to have extensive rehabilitation in order to learn to walk and talk again. When she initially looked in the mirror after the attack, she didn't recognise that person looking back at her. She says she remembers asking a nurse, like, will I ever walk again? The nurse said, with a lot of hard work you will. Melissa said that's all she needed, and she really wanted to go backpacking around Europe with her friends. She really wanted to do all the stuff she dreamed about. And within 3 weeks, she was walking out of that hospital. No crutches, no wheelchair, anything. That's how hard she worked. That same year, she graduated high school and walked across the stage to collect her award. A year or so after, she did go backpacking around Europe with a friend, and she remembers standing there looking at the Eiffel Tower and just crying. Her friend said, like, why are you crying? She said, I could have been dead. I could have not been doing this. After all that she went through, she still had to testify against Robert in court. As she was doing so, Robert just glared at her. He still wanted control. He still wanted her to feel submissive. But she didn't let him, and she carried on. She gave all the evidence in court that she could. Robert actually eventually pleaded guilty, and he was sentenced to life without parole. The man, the firefighter, Cameron Hill, who got the helicopter for Melissa on the day of the attack, they actually ended up falling in love and getting married. He proposed to her at a baseball game. He says he remembers seeing her at the scene and thinking, I'm going to meet this woman again. This woman is special. Melissa now works for a charity who work with sort of families in crisis and also teenage domestic violence. She says she never wants another girl to go through what she went through. That was the survivor's case of Melissa Dohme. If you do have any suggestions for cases in the future, please let me know in the comments below. My name's Emma, this is Tiki Bar True Crimes, and I'll see you next time.